are live. Good morning, folks. Good morning, Success Squad. Happy Monday to you. Of course, I am Levonda Watson Sankitz, that FIRE coach at firebusinesscoaching.com. And I woke up this morning with a burden on my heart, and I am here to encourage you. I am here to encourage you. Of course, we are 3 weeks into my 12-week course curriculum, FBS3, which is Fire Business Success School, right? Supernatural Success School. And so we're 3 weeks in, and we are building businesses that God can bless. We are building businesses that God can bless and multiply and use for his glory in the marketplace. And so that being said, we have rolled up our sleeves and we are building our way towards supernatural success. Now that all sounds great. That all sounds awesome. That sounds, amazing. That sounds exciting, but that can also be scary. That can also be scary because we're doing things that we're not accustomed to doing. Some of you have never gone live before. Some of you have never done videos before. Some of you have never put together courses and packages. Some of you have never stepped up on that big stage. Some of you have never written books before. And so you're here and you're saying yes to God to do some things that you've never done before. Now, I, as the coach, have seen this so many times. I've been in business for 15 years. So I have been coaching women for long enough to know that it feels exciting and that it's awesome, but it's also very scary. And so if you are at that point today where you're just like, I'm not sure that I can do this. I'm not sure, Lord, that I can do what you're asking me to do. If you are at that point, I want to encourage you today. You are in good company. I want to encourage you today. I just want to take a second to flip through the pages of power and show you that you are in good company. There were tons of people who said to God or who felt like, Lord, I cannot do what you're asking me to do. And so I hope that this quick training brings some encouragement to you, especially if you have been, wallowing and just really struggling in your spirit. Like, can I really do this? Me, little old me. Can I write a book that people will read? Can I write a signature talk that people will engage in when I stand on the stage? Can I actually create that workshop? Can I actually, build out a course that people will pay money for? Can I step into this role that God has called me to do? Now, you know that I believe that entrepreneurship is a calling, and it is, right? So we are called to the marketplace, just like a doctor is called to, the operating room, just like the teacher is called to the classroom. I believe that we are called to the marketplace, but this calling comes with some pretty heavy things, right? This calling requires a lot of us, and sometimes we don't feel prepared. Even though we know God has called us, we may not necessarily feel prepared to accept the calling. If you are there, I have been there. And there are tons of other people who have been there. And so I want to share that with you this morning. We're going to flip the pages of power, and I'm going to give you, just a few examples so that you could feel a little bit better about where you are. And then I'm going to tell you at the end of this quick training how you can get over that feeling. And so first, let's take a look at the people of Israel. Now, the people of Israel felt that way, like, Lord, we cannot do what it is that you are calling us to do. Do you remember when the people of Israel were in the wilderness and they were being led to the promised land, right? And God told them to send 12 spies into the promised land so that they can kind of scope out the land, right? Bring back the fruit and see what the fruit is like, see what the land is like, see what the people are like, see what challenges await, like what is the promised land like? Go spy it out and then come back with your report. Well, they did just that, right? So they came back. Caleb and Joshua led, these spies into the promised land, and they came back with the report, and it was not a good report. Let's take a look at it. I'm in Numbers chapter 13, and I am going to read verse, let's say 31. let's say 31, because I want you to hear what they said as a result of having gone in the land. Because of course they went into the promised land and they realized that there were already cities set up there that were already walled and barricaded, right? They realized that there was, good fruit, massive fruit, that the land was good, but they also realized that there were some giants in the land, right? The people of Anak, who were considered really big giants, right? There were a few giants in the land. And so they came back afraid, some of the spies. Joshua and Caleb are bosses, but the other ones came back super afraid. And so they came back and they brought the report that, hey, there's some giants in the land and they're bigger than us. And we don't think, God, that we could do what it is that you've called us to do. So they said these words in verse 31. That is Numbers chapter 13, verse 31. They said, but the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. He said, listen, we aren't able to do this. Like, these people are stronger than us. We are unable, Lord. We cannot do this. And so, of course, the entire congregation came into agreement. They all started wailing and crying. They all got scared. They all forgot the promise of the Lord. They all forgot the provision of the Lord. They all forgot the presence of the Lord. They got scared and said, we can't do this. Now, are they the only ones that felt that way? Nope, they are not the only ones that felt that way. Let's take a look at Gideon. You might remember Gideon. Gideon is in the book of Judges. I'm going to go to Judges chapter 6. And in chapter 6, God is having a conversation with Gideon. And he basically tells Gideon, listen, I want you to go and protect the people of Israel from the Midianites, right? They were about to go to battle. And, God said, okay, Gideon, you go do it. And Gideon says, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not able to do this thing that you were telling me to do again, right? So Gideon says in verse, let's say 15. So I'm in chapter 6, that's Judges chapter 6, verse 15. Gideon says, and he said unto him, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. So Gideon says, listen, I know you want me to do this thing, but pump your brakes, because I just need to let you know something. My family is the poorest in Manasseh. Like, we are the poorest, and I am the least in my family. I'm the weakest link. Maybe you should get one of my siblings or something, because I am the weakest link and my family is poor. So you might want to go check out another family. You might want to call somebody else. So even Gideon said, Lord, I'm not able to do what it is that you're asking me to do. Gideon too forgot the promise. He also forgot the provision, and obviously he forgot the presence, right? So who else? Listen, we could do this all day. We can do this all day. I hope you're getting my point here. Who else said, Lord, I'm not sure that this is probably something that I could do. I'm not sure. I don't think this is something that I want to say yes to. I can't do what you're asking me to do. Let's take a look at Esther. Now, we love Esther, right? We love Esther. I love the book of Esther. I love reading it. I love her courage. I love, the stance that she took and the favor that God gave her. And I love the femininity that she possesses and the power. There's power in being a woman. There's power. But anyway, we're not going, that's a whole other training. So let's take a look at Esther. And so God has given her favor, right? But before we even get to that point, Mordecai comes and tells Esther, listen, like, this thing is about to happen. There's been a decree and the Jews are all going to be executed, and Haman's done this thing, and you got to go do something, right? You got to go do something. Go to the king, go let him know that you're a Jew, go tell him this, go save the people, Esther. And Esther says, wait a minute, what? I can't do this thing that you're telling me to do. And so I want to read to you, I'm in Esther, I'm in chapter 4. We're going to look specifically at verse 11. It says, all the king's servant and the people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes to the inner court to the king, who has not been called, has but one law, to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter. that he may live. Yet I myself have not been called to the king in these 30 days. So Esther is saying, listen, you know, I know, everybody knows that you just can't walk up into the king's room and be like, bro, can I talk to you? She's saying, listen, you cannot just walk up to the king and say, can we have a little conversation? You have to be called. And if you walk up to the king like this, like, you can be put to death. And I have not been called. And so I'm not trying to be put to death for this. Like, this is not something that I feel like I need to do. I can't do this, right? And then she says, I love that she says, I haven't even been called in 30 days. So she's saying, listen, this is my husband, is true, but I haven't seen him in a month. Like, we got issues. Okay. So I can't just go do this, right? But even she says, no, this is not something that I can do. She too forgot the promise. She too forgot the provision, and she forgot the presence. Now, last one. Who else might be feeling like, God, I can't do this. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than me. This is too much for me. I and myself and my flesh cannot do what you're asking me to do. Listen, Jesus himself felt that way. Jesus himself felt that way. Let's flip the pages of power. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 26, and we're going to look at verse 39. That's Matthew 26. We're going to look specifically at verse 39. Of course, you know this. We see it a lot during the Easter holiday. And of course, we have heard it preached a million times. So I am not going to preach it to you. I am just going to read it to you. You know the backdrop, right? Jesus has to fulfill the law, right? He's got to fulfill what Isaiah has prophesied, and he's got to go to the cross, and he's going to be crucified so that man can be redeemed back to God. So he was our ransom, right? And so he has said yes to this, and he in his flesh has done his ministry, and that time has come for him to be crucified. And we're reading again, verse 39, and he says this. He went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." He said, "Oh, my Father, oh, my God," right? "Oh, my God, listen, please take this cup from me. Please take, like, this is the last cup of the Passover, and I don't want no parts of it, right? I don't want any parts of this shedding of blood. I don't want to go through the agony. I don't want to go through the suffering. I don't want my body and my spirit completely torn apart." Like, emotionally, he was going to go through a lot. People that he had served and healed and blessed and, had established relationships with, people that he had, ministered to, are all saying, "Crucify me." Or crucify him, right? So emotionally, he was rejected. He was, just spat upon, betrayed, even those within his circle. You got Peter denying him, like, "I don't know who he is." You know what I'm saying? The people closest to him that he loved. So he's going through emotional agony. He is going through physical agony. He's like, "I don't want to do this. Lord, this is too big for me. This is too much for me. I don't want to do it. I can't do what you're asking me to do." But then he says, "Not my will, but your will," right? All of them eventually they all do what God has asked them to do. They all do it, and they all succeed in doing it, right? Why? Because they had the promise of God. They had the provision of God, and they had the presence of God. God was with them, right? God was with each and every one of them. And even though they felt before like they could not do what God was asking them to do, they ended up being able to do it, and do it well. Why? Because they had the promise, the provision, and the presence and the power of God. So why do I tell you this today? Why do I tell you this today? I know that you are feeling like this call on your life is bigger than you. I know you are sitting here wondering every time we go through a class, you're like, oh my gosh, did I bite off more than I could chew? Can I really do this? Like, am I really cut out for this? Do I really have what it takes? Nobody in my family has done this before. Who's going to listen to me, right? What kind of presence or power do I have? Like, why would I do this? Like, I know I feel like God is calling me to do this, but why me, right? Like, I can't do. If you're feeling that way, you are not the only one who has ever felt that way. And I want you to understand that God is with you. There has been a promise already extended to you, right? All things are going to work together for your good. You have the victory through Christ. I can give you a whole ton of them. There are tons of promises, right? There are tons of them. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So you have the promises of God. You have got the provision of God. We've already talked about that in class, right? He has already provided for the call that is on your life. He's going to bring the people that he wants to hear you. He's going to bring the people that you are destined and called to serve. He's going to do it. That's why we pursue supernatural success, because there's only so much we can do in our flesh. But there are some things that God has already done for you. There's some things that God will do for you, doors that he will open, money that he will bring, partnerships that he will create, creativity that he will pour into you that you can birth out. You don't have to worry. The provision has already been made. In the presence of God, he has promised. Remember in the book of Matthew, he says, listen, I want you to go and do these things. He told the disciples, go and baptize people, right? Go and teach them, do all these things in my name. And lo, I will be with you always, even until the end of the age. That promise extends to you. He will be with you always, even until the end of the age. And so his presence is with you. And we already know in the presence of God, there's fullness of joy. In the presence of God, there's freedom, right? Everything that you need is in his presence. And so as long as he is with you, you've got all that you need. So you've got the promise, you've got the provision, and you've got the presence of God. With those things, you can do what it is that he's asking you to do. With those things, you absolutely can, just like Esther could, just like Gideon did, just like the people of Israel were able to go and possess or the promised land. Just like, I think about Joshua and Caleb in that situation where Joshua and Caleb were like, no, let's go do this. God is already with us. God has already given us this land. Let's go do this, right? So you have to feel that way as well. God has already promised you. He's already given you the provision. He is right there with you. Let's go do this. Let's build, my friend. Let's build. Success Squad, it is time to build. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for each one of you. But I wanted to encourage you today, just in case you were feeling like this is a little bit bigger than me. Let's build. Let's watch the glory of God come to fruition in the marketplace. We can do this. We can do this. God bless you guys today. I love you, and I will see you in class on Thursday night. Bye. Take good care.